So, let's think for a moment. What are the things that bind us? What are the things that keep us entombed in life? Well, certainly, in this story, one of the things that entomb us, that keep us bound, is fear. Fear of the end. Fear of death. Fear that there might not be any more after this life. And so, we find people today doing everything they can to look younger and to live longer. Now, you know, I like life because I don't, you know, the alternative isn't as great as I think sometimes, you know? And so, so I run. You see, I got family history, particularly on the male side, that we're not long livers. And so, you know, I think that I have to make sure that I stay in shape. I got up and ran 5 miles this morning. I run 5 miles every morning just to try and stay in shape. I mean, this figure doesn't come by natural. I mean, this isn't natural. This isn't natural. I have to work at this. I mean, I had peach cobbler and ice cream last night, you know? I got to work at this. Somebody asked me one time, how come you run every morning? I said, so I can have peach cobbler and ice cream the night before. So one of the things that really bind us is our fear of the unknown. What if? What might happen? And sometimes we spend great amounts of energy trying to prevent the unknown from happening. You see, I want to stay in shape because I love life. But I also know that God can use me best when I'm healthy. When I'm physically healthy, when I'm emotionally healthy, when I'm spiritually healthy. And so I got to keep working at my spiritual health, staying in the scriptures, reading the scriptures, praying, being with other believers, being held accountable. I've got to keep myself emotionally healthy by making sure I've got a stress valve release, that I can just allow stress to just be released. I've got good friends I can talk to about the challenges in my own life and the things that are going on. I can pray to God about those things. I get up and run every morning because it's a stress reliever for me. And then I work on keeping myself physically healthy. Because, you see, for me, it's not about living longer. It's about living healthier. It's not about trying to get more years in. It's trying to get more quality in the years that I have. Because I can't control when I'm going to die. But I can hope that I'll have a rich and full life so that I can be a powerful witness for God and I can work at it to make it happen. So one of the things we have to unbind ourselves from is all this fear about the future and get working today on making ourselves more spiritually, physically, and emotionally well and healthy. All right, second thing. What is it that binds us? Well, it's the Mary and Martha syndrome. Blaming somebody else. If you would have only been here, Jesus. If you would have only done this. And so, you don't have to raise your hand, but does anybody here know anybody that just blames somebody else all the time? And it's always somebody else's fault, right? Most of the time they're in our own families, right? The challenge of living in the midst of people that want to blame somebody else. Blame somebody else for their economic challenges. Blame somebody else because they never seem to get what other people get. Blame somebody else because life just doesn't treat them fairly. And so there's often this game of blaming somebody else. Well, Jesus so often taught, take responsibility for your own life. You may not be able to control other people's lives, but you can take responsibility for your life and what you're going to do with your life. So begin to live your life as though it is an important life. That your life has been granted to you because of the grace of God. And that God has provided opportunities for extravagance in life. And ours is to embrace the moment and embrace the challenge and say, now what I'm going to do with it. What am I going to do now? And so healthy people, faithful people in the Christian story don't go around blaming somebody else for their problems. But they say, God, I don't know why this is here today, but I know I need to deal with it. And God, I know I can't deal with this on my own, so I need your help. And God, I need you to send some people in my life that's going to help me work through this, or work with me to work through this. And so we need not to be blaming, but to accept responsibility for our part in the problem and what we're going to do in the future. You know, I hear churches all the time want to blame somebody else for why their church isn't doing well. They want to blame people in the community. They want to blame the bishop. They want to blame the pastor. They want to blame and find everybody else to blame except look within and say, what does God expect of us and what are we going to do right here and right now? One of the things that I'm just so grateful for about this congregation is that you've begun to say, what are we going to do about our future? The community's changing. Society's changing. We don't all look alike anymore. We all don't live in the same communities alike anymore. So what are we going to do to be that church of Jesus Christ that welcomes all people and opens our arms wide and says, whoever comes, we're going to share God's grace with them. And that's what I see here today, is arms open wide, saying we're going to welcome everybody who comes and share God's grace with them. So it's not about trying to find blame, but it's trying to find, God, what is it that you want me to do in this time and in this situation? You see, you can't be a signpost to God when you're trying to blame somebody else. The only way you can be a signpost that God is in the house, that God is in me, and in the work that we do, is by saying, God, what do you want me to do? I am your servant. I am ready to serve you. Do the same things in your family, in your school, in your communities, everywhere you are, to say, God, what do you need from me in this moment at this time? And then the third binding that happens is we get stuck in the immediate, what's happening right at that moment, without seeing a clear picture of what God's vision for the future is. And so we get lost in the moment. That's what happened with Mary and Martha and others. They just got lost right in that moment and couldn't see beyond what God might possibly do. In other words, a rut was created. You know what a rut is? A rut, you know, when a tire creates a rut in the road or a dirt road, and people get stuck in their ruts. They get stuck in their ruts and they can't even see over the rut. You ever feel like your life has been stuck in a rut and I just can't get out of this rut? Well, it's because we're stuck in the moment without seeing God's vision for the future and what God has for us. Now, here's something I want to tell you. The edge of the rut is not the horizon. The edge of the rut that we can only see at this moment is not the horizon. But God's vision is so much greater and so much more powerful. And we have to begin to look beyond the rut and see what God has for us in the future. And begin to claim that and take responsibility to work toward that. So when Jesus raised Lazarus from the dead, he knew he sealed his future, his fate, and what was going to happen. And he knew that everything would be turned to Jerusalem. But he also knew that death is not the last word. He also knew that hope is the powerful tool of people of faith. And he also knew that God would begin to connect bone to bone, sinews to those bones, muscles, skin. Breathe in life for the future. There are people who go around today saying the United Methodist denomination is dying here in the United States. And I want to say, God's getting ready for a resurrection. There are people who want to go around saying the church isn't what it used to be. We're not like we used to be. We've got no future. And God is saying, I've got a resurrection waiting. People want to go around and say, all is lost. We can't make it happen. And God is saying, I've got a resurrection for you. 200 years is remarkable. 200 years is remarkable. But don't confuse the edge of the rut for the horizon. God's got some great days in your future. Embrace them. Be unbound from all that traps you in, and be released for the work of God. Amen?
Amen.